I'm here today at the 2018 quilt show by the Cedar Grove Quilters, and I'm going to walk through and show you some really good examples of the work that they produced this year. We'll start with Rachel Ray's string quilt, which is entitled Autumn. She is very fond of browns, and you can see she's really explored the palette well, and the border is nice. See the border. Over here is Kathy Lewis and her Sunrise Sunset quilt, which is a 9-patch with stripping. She was inspired by some coastal watercolors by the artist Ned Leary. I'll show you one of those up close. This is North Carolina coast, sunset, and you can see how she's repeated this theme of color. I'm going to go in here and show you a applique quilt by Ruth Richardson. It's called the Blue Dahlia. I'm flipping around to that. Here we go. The Blue Dahlia. It's appliqued and machine quilted. It really represents the format of the radiating petals on the dahlia bud. Over here is Aunt Mary's Rose Garden, which is by Frances Griffin, and there's a lot of beautiful white work on here. I'll go in close so you can see the border. There you go. And I believe that Frances quilted this one all on her own, and the stitches are so consistent and perfect. Look at that. All right, I'm going to switch now to a vintage quilt that Ruth Richardson put together and quilted, and I believe, no, I'm not sure what this pattern is called, but it's red work, which was popular and very collectible. A lot of people collect red work. So this is a vintage quilt that someone approached her to work on, and she finished it up very nicely. The blue quilt that you saw earlier is a string quilt by Rachel Ray. Rachel is very fond of this process of doing string quilts, and you can see she's put her squares together now to make these sort of square medallions. And then you can, if you look at it the other way, you can see a big X. So, I'm going to switch over now, and this is Baby Quilt by Betty Borland, and I'm going to get in close so you can see that print. Very cute. Alrighty, she's got a new grandson, and I'm sure maybe that belongs to him. Okay, over here is a tribute by Ruth Richardson to our political situation today. And she's got her Democrat and her Republican up there, and the eagle. And I'm going to zoom in on a couple of these centers of these stars so you can see the fabric and all the different kinds of Americana images that she's included in this quilt. It makes for a nice, beautiful graphics in this fabric. There's Mount Rushmore. And here is another eagle, the flag, and back, oh, and of course the White House is at the top. All right, I'm going back into the big room now, and I'm going to go right straight to the raffle quilt, which is called,
These are my pictures for
let's see, what about this one?
This one looks like it could be a winner.
There you go. Jungle Beauty. And this is the 5440 pattern, and the 9-patch in a 4-patch. It's 5440 or fight, excuse me. I'm going to go in so you can see how this 9-patch in the 4-patch works. Whoops. There we go. So you see 4 9-patches go together to make this big checkerboard. I think it's a great combination with the other star pattern, the 4440 or fight.
I hope I parked in the right place. I'm sort of out in the pasture.
This is Betty Borland's work entitled Four Patch Star, and you can see that there's some really nice white work inside it in these white squares, and it's not always the same thing.
That's what I'm saying.
So there's 3 different examples of white work in her quilt. I'm going to back off so you can see it. I'm going to flip over here to this vintage quilt that Barbara quilted. And this is a quilt that her mother put together years ago, I'd say almost 80 or 70 years ago. And this is the famous Sunbonnet Sue. It's fascinating that these quilting projects can span this many decades. And right here we have a what we call a stack and whack. I'm going to back off of it. These medallions are made from this one big piece of fabric, and you can see the fabric that was used here in the border, and it's just cut very specifically to form these medallions that you saw. And Marianne brought this to quilting. Naomi LaBouchère quilted, pieced this. There you go. I think that's a fascinating way to put things together. And I'm going to flip around here to Jackie Wade's quilt. And we did a raffle quilt like this a few years ago. I love this pattern. It's called Double Dutch, and you can see the pinwheels are repeated in the center. The center pinwheel and then the outer pinwheel. I call it a pinwheel. I'm going to flip over here to Joanne Mathis's work, which is called Kissing Cousins and Georgia Peach. There's 2 separate blocks there. It's hard to tell because you have to really study each block to see the difference in the patterns. And it's not totally alternated. It's sort of a random placement, which I think makes for a more interesting approach. This is a red work by Frances Griffin, and it is called Stepping Stones, and it has some elements of the Irish chain in it, but it's a beautiful work. And I think Frances came to us and said, "Oh, I think this is the first I've machine pieced or something," and we were just in awe of her construction technique because it seems flawless. Here we go. I'm going to go up close so you can see. There we go. Let's see. Over here is a work by Ginger Bayless, Grandma's 4 Patch. She was laughing and she said, "You know, I was making it one way. It was supposed to be Grandma's 5 patch, and she forgot 1 row of the strips." But we said, "Hey, man, it looks good." So you know, we love the happy accidents when we're quilting. No, stay there. Stay put. This is the quilt that we quilted for the United Methodist Women, and it is a fancy Dresden plate because the edges of the medallions are curved, and also the centerpiece with a little sort of 4-point star. This quilt, I'm going to back up so you can see those 4 points in the corners in addition to in the middle. This is very beautiful on the back side. Mary Pixley, who lives out here in Cedar Grove, she's a great quilter, and she's taught quilting and knows everybody in the quilt world in the Triangle. She pieced this, and the Methodist women got it from her, and we quilted it. And they'll have this quilt available at auction in November when they have their harvest festival. This is my quilt, which is called Spiderweb, and it's not quilted. It is tied, so I'll walk up close and you can see how I tied it in the corners. It's so thick, you would need to live in Alaska to use it. It's got thick batting, and it's flannel on both sides. And you could probably use it either way because I put together some different larger pieces of flannel to form the backing instead of using muslin. But I had a child in mind when I designed this quilt, and I put my little great niece Marion's name on it, and she needs to get it soon, or she'll be too grown up. This is the Ribbon Star by Kathy. Sorry for the light coming in the window. And it is a wall hanging they look like vintage fabrics, reproduction fabrics to me. Let me go in so you can see this beautiful border. I especially like these roses in the corner. There you go. But the star is one, you can either focus on the star or focus on the other square. See that? Okay. Moving along. I'm going to turn around, and this is Shirley Scarlett's quilt. It's another form of a string quilt with a little more complicated approach. I'm going to walk up close and so you can see it, how it's put together. The squares, I believe, this would be, let's see, no, that's not it. Let's see, how did she do this?
I'm trying to get them to stop. Yeah, they're stopping.
I think this is the square right here.
It'll be warm enough here a little bit.
Anyway, I'll walk across here. It's very bold. And I think the really cool thing that ties this quilt together is the fact that she used this black and gold dot fabric as a sort of unifying feature to the quilt. It really pulls the whole thing together. She calls it kaleidoscope strings. I'm going to back out so you can see more of it. There you go. There's 3 of them. It really is a great specimen of the optical effects that can be achieved with quilting. This is a doll quilt, vintage, that was made by we don't know who made it, but Joanne quilted it, and it's very subtle, and I think you can see that it isn't from our time because it's just a different, more subtle, and probably some of the fabrics are faded. Over time, it happens. This is one of our feature quilts this year, which was quilted by Claire Witten, and we quilted it for Caleb Truitt. He's also has some beautiful work, but we were just. This is a beautiful piece with a lot of white work. It's not really white, but you can see that there's a lot of work in the border, a vine design, and here is a sort of a spiral floral, and this is not typical of what we've seen when you piece a log cabin, but I think it's very beautiful, and the fabrics are striking. I'm not sure whether these are reproduction fabrics. They look like it to me, but I'll go in close so you can get a feeling for that. There you go. Over here we have a pattern called the Hunter Star. Sarah Troxler quilted this, and she calls it Flowers on the Vine. A lot of white space here, and also stars. This quilt was a dream to quilt. The fabrics were so soft. I'm going to go in close so you can see some of the stitchery. We did everything in the ditch, and we did leave some seams open to enhance the star. Okay. Turning here, this is a 9-patch by Barbara Pope. She did an interesting thing with the borders. I think you can see it on the side where she put the little colorful square on the border where the center of some of the patches are. I like that technique. This really pops with all the colors. I think you can see it just vibrates, the frequency of the color next to each other. And it's sort of a random placement, which creates these kinds of effects. Okay, this is a work by Barbara Phillips, and on first glance I seem to think it's an applique, but it's not. It's sewn together. I'm going to go in close up on one of these squares so you can see. So it is all piece, not applique. And you can see that there's a lot of white work here. Very beautiful white work. We love to get these quilts with white work because the white work doesn't have any seams, and you just scoot along with your quilting, and there's very little resistance. When you quilt in the ditch, you get more resistance because there's more layers of fabric. This is Betty Borland's larger quilt that she did this year, and it's called X's and O's. So look at this, and you'll see the shift back and forth. One time you'll see an X, and then you might see the O's. Betty puts her fabrics together in a fantastic way, and I think you can see that from looking at it. I'm going to back up some more.
Don't do it. I said, she said, well, I just don't think I can recover from it. There's too much to the right.
Okay, there we go. I'm going to come around here to the finale. And this, let's see, we're going up to this bow tie. This is called Buds and Bow Ties. And this also has some great white work in the border and also some applique. There we go. Can you see that? She appliqued those lines up in the corners. And this, of course, is the square we call the bow tie.
Oh, go.
Here's the vine. I can't get over there because of the food table. Okay, coming back up here. This is a Christmas table runner that Betty Borland did, hanging over our mantel here at Eno Presbyterian. I'm backing up so you can see the whole thing. There you go. Okay, I'm going to move now over to Elaine Johnson's quilt, which her sister Ruth Richardson made for her this year, or piece for her. She had an injury and couldn't quilt with us, but she fed us all year, and it was fantastic. She got our lunches together many, many days, so she put in more time than us, really. Moving up close so you can see this. This is called Chicken Recipes, and I'll show you a few of the squares that I think are really fun. Let's see. Chicken Italiano with the pizza. Let's see, I'm going to move over here to Moroccan chicken. See, it's got a camel in the background. And then there's Dixie chicken. And this one's especially funny, chicken cacciatore. Okay, this is my favorite, chicken divan. Now, isn't that a hoot? All right, fried chicken, Hawaiian chicken, Mardi Gras chicken, and chicken divine. See the halo? We had a great time quilting this. It's so much fun. It's got, I'll move in close to one. Let's see, Mexican chicken. And you can see that it was appliqued with a machine. There you go. You can see those stitches. And here's the little donkey and the Mexican chicken.
I mean, they're all.
And the diamonds, you know,
And I like the stewed chicken.
Let's see. Here is a quilt done by Joanne Mathis, and this is Oliver's Trucks. There's a lot of work on this, and I'm going to go in close so you can see some of these great road working, some of the great road working equipment. Here we go. There's a tractor, the bulldozer, dump truck. I don't know what that might be, a front end loader maybe. And here's a cement mixer. I think that one of the aspects of this quilt that's really fun is how she did the border and how it goes along with the toys and gives it that sort of playful look. I'm going to back up so you can see it better as a whole. Here we go. There you go. I love this next piece. This is a applique, machine applique, and it's using fusing, and it's called Teal Giraffe by Sarah Troxler. It's just the giraffe itself is kind of jewel-like. And I'm going to go in so you can see some of the patterns. She's got many layers of fabric on here and then fused together and then with some applique by the machine. And then the solid background I think is very effective. There you go. Dahlias, daisies, roses. What a beautiful combination of designs. Okay, turning now to, I love this quilt. It inspired me to do a quilt, a string quilt. I hadn't done one in a long time, and I started mine. But this one is Kathy Lewis's, and I just love the fabric she's used, and I love this color combination. This is called Buttercup String. Okay, we have a special feature this year. I'm going to pan around. This is another quilt by Rachel Ray, which is maybe a 4-patch and a 4-patch. It's another child's quilt, and it's very vibrant. Look at that. Now, we had a special event this year. We had an artist come who was interested in taking some photos of people quilting, and so she brought her finished product here this year for us to see. And so right here is a painting that she did from being out here with us. And she's got a single hand on the lights are making a glare on this. I'm sorry for that. But so you can see the process of quilting designed. Let me move. There we go. We can see it better. Excuse the glare. This is one of our quilters, Mary Ann Kimbrough, and she is quilting on Ginger Bayless's quilt. And this is a very proper way to work on the quilt and coming towards you, probably. You can see where thimble's placed, and we're just thrilled to have this painting here. I'll show you. Hanny came today to be with us. Hi, Hanny. We're so happy to have her here today. And to celebrate our end of quilting season. So we're about ready for the doors to open, and everybody will be in here soon. So thanks to any of you that come out today. We'll be glad to see you.